Hi, Chroma Church. Lovely to see you. This is our third episode of our Inspire category of the I series, and we have some really special guests with us today. I am Tim.
And I'm Jess.
And today we have, well, some quite famous people, because you all know one of them from very famous things like Chroma's church history, but I'll let them introduce themselves.
Well, hello, I'm Ralph.
And I'm Roh.
We live in Tilton, just outside of Leicester. We've been part of Chroma now for a little short of 2 years, although in Leicester for longer than that. I used to work in the City of London for most of my career in the pension and finance industry. And nowadays, when I'm not busy with other things, I work with a group called Mission 24, and I write books.
And I am currently a counsellor, a practicing counsellor, as in seeing people, as in S, not a local counsellor. And I've done various things in my life, from being an educator to doing a short time in nursing, and now I'm counselling.
So a natural progression through your career. Well, guys, thank you so much for coming on. We really appreciate it, and we have heard words of wisdom from other members of our congregation over the last couple of weeks, and we're really looking forward to hearing what you have to say specifically on the topic of staying centered. So first up, would you be able to define what staying centered is and what staying centered means to you, just so that we're all on the same page?
Okay. I think for me, being centered is very much knowing who I am, and knowing in a really positive way. And so I had to go back to my conversion, which was when I was 16. And before then, I was knew in my heart that there was a God who loved me for who I was, rather than for whatever I did. And I was very much brought up in a background where it was all very servitude rather than being yourself. And so when I was 16, I found this God, and I don't think I wavered from that. So for me, that centrality has to come from my basic belief in this living God and what he's put into my life since then. Yeah.
So I think I'd answer it maybe slightly differently. Staying centered, it's kind of a mix of, I don't know, discipline and sensitivity. So I know, and you know, that it's not to do with feelings, that our walk with God, our understanding of who Jesus is not in the end to do with how I feel when I wake up in the morning. And therefore I have to get into some kind of discipline in my life that keeps me centered. And it's the obvious things. It's prayer, it's reading the word, and the Bible will come alive. It will come alive if we're disciplined enough to get into it. And that keeps me centered. And then, yeah, there is a sensitivity too. So I guess the older you are as a Christian, I'll have been a Christian for 50 years this year. How did I get that old? But anyway, there's an awareness of the Holy Spirit, and you can sense him, and you can offend him. And just as you grow as a Christian, it gets maybe a little easier just to know where you are with God on those things, and so you can get back to being centered that way as well.
So good. I love it. I love the blend of encounter and discipline in kind of your daily walk and relationship with God. So the next question is like a natural progression from that. So when life like threatens to throw you off course, we all know sometimes we're thrown some curveballs. What is your anchor point or your reference point for coming back to staying centered?
So shall I go first this time? You're looking at one of my reference points. This is my study. You can see one wall of books. There's 2 other walls of books. I shut the door. I'm kind of a bit of an introvert. So lockdown's quite fun for me. I don't mind. I don't mind.
I'm going mad.
Yeah, it drives her own mad. We've thankfully had our younger son here for a while, which has kept her centered, I'm sure. So practically, that's one of the places I come when I just need to be quiet and need just some time with God. It's almost like a literal shelter. And the other is a bit different, really. I don't know how I caught onto this, but very early in my Christian life, I just began to realize how short life is and how I only have one life and I only have one go at this. And why would I want to be go off at any tangent, stop in any way from going on with God, when I've only got one opportunity to do this well? So yeah, things throw you off course, and emotionally you can be pretty damaged sometimes, but always I come back to the thought that, you know, I've only got one life and I'm not going to waste it in hurt and anger or bitterness or any of these things that can stop me from growing in God.
I think my point of reference is just looking at me holistically. So it's not just
There speaks the counsellor.
It's not just oh, I'm okay spiritually and that's it sort of thing. It's also sort of looking at myself physically, so aligning myself holistically. And the best way I do that is by making sure that I take care of myself. And you know, when I was younger, a lot younger, and I had little ones at home, I used to think, oh, I can't spend time on myself because they're so selfish. But I've learned along the way, it isn't selfish. It's okay to take 5 minutes of your day to spend time on yourself, you know, be it reading a book, going for a walk, maybe even buying a bar of chocolate and enjoying it without feeling guilty. Do you know, somebody once said to me, being a mother equals being guilty. And I used to think, I wonder what that means. But I think once I started on the motherhood journey, I began to realize, because everything you do is always aimed at the family, the children. You never think about yourself. And so I think that's how I would center myself. It's just taking that 5 minutes off for myself, and then aligning myself spiritually as well. And that's been, I think, right from my conversion, my plumb line has to be God and my relationship with Him. I find that so very precious. And if I feel I haven't spent that moment with God on my own, or if I feel in any way I've neglected Him, it really saddens me. And so, you know, and to be honest, I don't even do huge Bible study and spend hours. It's very often it's just opening my Bible to a psalm, looking at a chunk of psalm, and then just meditating on that throughout the day in whatever I'm doing. So yeah, that's my point of reference very much.
That's powerful, and I think like it's really amazing advice, because obviously during lockdown, or we're coming out of it now, but understanding that you can spend time by yourself, even as an extrovert, is probably something that we need to all get in our heads. Like for me, I'm going stir crazy, but actually like having the self-control to say, actually in this moment, I'm going to make sure that I'm centered, not going after all these different things that I could do and be distracted by all the activity, but stay centered. I think that's really, really powerful. As we come out of lockdown, like, would you have any people in your lives who you would go to that support you to be centered? Like, and how do you choose those people? I know we're off script, but I'm really interested to know, like, as we come out of lockdown, as we get to see each other a bit more, like, how do you choose the people that really help you stay centered? And have you got those people in your lives?
Yeah, we have, and I think at different levels. So, you know, within Chroma, we have some good friends. If we feel we need just to chat to people, we know where to go. You know, there would be folks who perhaps had a similar background to us, and would be able to resonate with the issues we were facing. I think if it was something more serious, we have a dear couple that we used to share leadership with years ago down in Crawley in Sussex. And we're still in contact with them. And on an occasional basis, when things just go, they're the ones we would, you know, we might even drive down and see them. They live down in the West. Just to spend time with them, because they say it as it is and they know us as we are. And it's great when you have people like that. I think probably we don't have enough like that. You know, particularly as an introvert, I don't naturally go to other people. I probably need to do that more.
I think I'm different because I'm more into relationships and building that relationships, and I love having a laugh, and that really fills my tank. If I've had a good laugh, so you know, if I've seen a funny film, or I've just spent 5 minutes with somebody and we've just laughed a lot, that really fills my tank. And so though I wouldn't say I'm an extrovert person, because there's a little bit of being introvert, relationships are important, and I've learned that along our life journey, really, how important they are. And it's also important to stay connected with people. You know, there's a saying, iron sharpens iron. And I found that really, really helpful. So as I'm making friends, I will just sort of ask God, show me some things about this person which are of you, God, that I can learn off this person. And it doesn't matter that they don't have to be sort of older than me. They can be young ones as well, and you learn a lot from young people.
Love the fire.
So, you know, you catch their fire, their enthusiasm for life, and you think, cool, and you want to sort of champion them on, kind of thing. So that it's two levels. You know, you learn wisdom for more mature people. With the younger ones, you want to champion them on and say, yes, go for it.
I love being around youngsters. I just love catching their passion, and if there's any way I can encourage them, I will. But I get more from them than they do from me. I think just being with them keeps me young.
And I love that as well. Like, just I learn from my daughter Savannah when she's 1. I just observe her sometimes and learn from her, and just discovering that God isn't linear. Like, even both your responses are very different. They're so unique and diverse, so beautiful, and God has put that uniqueness in all of us. So when we position our hearts as a learner, there's so much we can get from everybody, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was just wondering, just off the back of that about who you go to, how you stay centered. Like, has there been a situation that had a big deal that's happened where it's been really difficult to come back to that place of center? And how did you get there? Like, how did you come back to that place where you recentered, where you went back to your shelter from the storm, where you went back to that place? How did you get there in that moment?
I've got a really funny one here.
This is at my expense, I fear, but carry on.
So, you know, obviously, it's sort of, there have been many times when that centrality has moved a little bit. But the one I really remember really, really well is we were sort of, I think it was the late 90s, and Ralph was preparing to run the marathon because it was his coming up to his milestone age, and I was a mere youngster, and so he was preparing to do this, which was sort of agony for the rest of the family, because you know, you have to drive him to special places to train and all this sort of thing. Anyway, and just before Ralph started this marathon thing, there was all this talk at the church at the time of what is your ministry, and this is my ministry, and this is my, and I used to think, God, I don't know what my ministry is. All I know is that I'm stuck at home with 4 kids and a husband who is never here when you need him, and just because he wanted one, he got himself a dog, which I had to look after. There's all these things going on. And then I started to pray after that selfish, self-pitying thing. God, do you know what my heart's desire is? And that is to just serve you, be a handmaiden to you. And so I started to pray that. Anyway, Ralph started this training thing. In the midst of all that, he contracted some sort of a virus.
Yeah, it was a dengue fever. It was from India, wasn't it?
It wasn't. That wasn't
anyway.
in 19. Anyway, he injured himself and he contracted this virus. So that meant he couldn't do anything. He just sort of sat there comatose in a chair. Absolutely. Anyway.
Please don't laugh too loud.
So now I am at home with a husband who is in the chair, a young puppy who's a Labrador, who is busy chewing his way through my house, pooing everywhere. I'm not an animal person, so yeah. I have an older child who's in the middle of his A levels, thinking about university, going through his angst period. I have another daughter who's going through her GCSEs and all the things that come with a teenage child. I have a set of twins who are 7. And there's me, and there's a dying husband. And there I am saying, God, I just pray that I'll be a handmaiden to you. And at one point, I remember, this was the breaking point, I noticed that my son, my youngest son, one of the twin, had lice in his hair. He had nits. And that was the breaking point. I really felt I was walking through the book of Job. I went to make the beds, and I remember pumping the pillows saying, God, why me? Why me? And I just decided, time out. I'm just going to leave Ralph here to stew in his illness. I'm going to leave Josh with him because he's not that incapable of looking after a child. And I'd arranged, we had arranged previously a coffee morning with some friends. So I just went off to my coffee morning. And I remember, I know it's only for 20 minutes, but I remember in those 20 minutes, us girls who met, they were just friends from school, moms from school. And we just sat there and we just laughed. And I can't even remember what it was about. It was ridiculous things that we just laughed and we laughed. And I came home feeling, yeah, I can cope with these things. But one of the things that did change for me was, God, how can I be your handmaiden when I want to kill my husband?
So,
but I did, so, but that was it. That was my thing. I need my time out so I can come back to this situation. I can cope with it. I can ask the older ones to take the puppy for a walk, and I can buy things in the chemist to help with the lice situation.
And Ralph is still alive, which we're very pleased to know.
I am still here. I have fully repented. Yeah.
He did run the marathon.
I did. I've done it twice. So I did get there in the end. But yeah. I mean, for me, 50 years as a Christian, the church is not perfect, right? And nor are we. And therefore, there's many examples we could give of where we have been pushed off centre. Gossip was one of them not long ago, and dealing with that was hard. It was hard because we knew it wasn't true, but there's nothing we could do because when gossip's out there, it's out there. And oh man! And the only way I come back to it, and I think I kind of it's the same answer I gave before, is just to be aware I've got one life. What am I going to do if I don't stay right with God? Am I going to waste every day? That, you know, I write a diary every day. I've written a diary every day since 1977. And it's a great discipline because it makes me think at the end of the day, how have I spent this day? Am I really running after God still? Do I want to, quotes, retire, or am I going to go for it? And, you know, my Old Testament hero is Caleb, and he was still going at 85. He was still taking mountains at 85. So I'm very determined to take some more mountains. And it's back to that. Life's too short to get cross with people. And in the end, it's the enemy. It's not them anyway. So let's just get on with it and keep pushing through.
Yeah, I think that's powerful. And I love hearing couples tell stories about each other, number one. But number two, I think that whole thing about we don't do battle with flesh, we do battle with the powers and principalities is something that's really important that we understand. And I think that's kind of what you're saying. At least that's what I felt you were saying, Ralph, in terms of, hey, like, you've got one life. Live your life loving people, but really going for Jesus, because really that's how you defeat the enemy. Not by, like, people aren't your enemy, the powers and principalities are.
No, absolutely. And your feelings may tell you something else. But, you know, in that situation, I just kept forgiving until the point came when it wasn't just words and it was a bit more real. And that took a little while because I'm human too. But, you know, I'm not going to dwell on that. I just need to be aware that actually that's enemy stuff. But God's got a bigger agenda for me than that.
Powerful. So good. Powerful.
And for the last question, I'm going to change tack just slightly. Obviously, you guys got a wealth of experience in both business and counselling, and like your other careers as well, Roh. So, just what has been the key in your business and counselling, I guess, to help support others stay centred?
Business. I worked in business for a long time, and one of the things I noticed very often with my Christian friends who were also in business was they hadn't got a very clear concept that they are full-time Christians, 24/7, whatever they do. And it's not like you come out of work and then you start being a Christian, but actually we serve God all the time. God is our boss. You know, Colossians 3:27, I think it is, says, Colossians 3:23, that we serve God, that he actually is our ultimate boss. So even if we've got a terrible boss, actually I'm serving God and I want to do my best for him. And that is a breakthrough for many people in business when they realize actually God's just as concerned that we're serving him full time there as any kind of, quotes, full-time ministry anywhere else.
Yeah.
I guess for me it is coming back to the Holy Spirit, and also admitting to myself my vulnerability. And if others see me being vulnerable, it'll draw them to what is inside me, which isn't me but God, you know, the Holy Spirit. And I've sort of also learned over the years, when people have come to me and have said it's so hard to stay on track, it's so hard to even read my scriptures every morning, and what do I do? And I just sort of ask them to be able to break things down, and to break things down in bite-sized pieces. So as I said, you know, sometimes I don't have time to actually take my Bible out and read the Word and explore the Word. But I make sure I have read something which is only for about 3 minutes, but that will be something that will stay on my mind. And I'll just ask the Holy Spirit to work in my heart to show me what God would say to me about that little bit. And then I'll probably come back to it afterwards and do a lengthier study or explore it a little bit more. But really it's sort of going back to the small bit and meditating on that. And it's always making sure that you are in a line with the Holy Spirit. And that's, you know, that relational thing for me is that's my foundation. And I never walk away from that. So that relationship that comes from God, with God, sort of overflows into friendships. And whenever I meet somebody, I'm always sort of praying and asking God, show me something about this person that is unique, and going back to that. So that it's almost like sort of building a catalogue of friends, if you like, who you know are there for you and they will support you. So when you're feeling slightly not in line, you can go back to them and say, could you just pray for me? I have a couple of friends who are my prayer warriors. So no matter what I'm going through, I would just say to them, I don't have to give a huge reason or anything. Sometimes I'll just say, pray for me, and I get back a thing on it, kind of thing, you know, and that's excellent. So yeah, that relationship, that centrality of God and the Holy Spirit.
Powerful.
Thank you guys so much. It's really interesting because we're interviewing, you know, all these amazing people, but there's so many nuggets for us in as well, like just listening to you, and yeah, Holy Spirit just really speaking some truth to me and into some of the situations as well that I'm in daily as well. So really honour you guys. Thank you so much for sharing, and love all what you've said about relationship and discipline and vulnerability, and yeah, really powerful things for us to kind of mull over, chew over, and yeah, allow Holy Spirit to refine us, really.
Yeah, absolutely powerful, guys. We so value you and so value your voices and your wisdom. We are out of time, but we could go on for a lot longer. So just to say, Cromer Church, we love you, and it's goodbye from Ralph and Roh.
Bye.
Sorry, I should have prepped you for that. Sorry, awkward ending. And it's bye from me, Jess. We love you, and we'll see you soon.
Next week. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.